Hi, this is Keith Wilson with the introduction of my book, The Road to Reconciliation, a comprehensive guide to peace when relationships go bad. This is called Start at the Beginning. If you're a victim, you're wounded and angry, someone close to you who should love you hurt you instead. This person might be a parent, a sibling, a child, a friend, a partner, or a spouse. Whoever it is, where you once had trust, you now have fear. You were attracted, now you are apprehensive. You had love, but now you have loathing. You don't know what to do. Should you stay or should you go? Put up with it or give it right back to them? Retaliate or bury your feelings? If neither choice seems good, it's because neither choice is good. You wish there was another way, some way that affirmed your experience as a victim, but didn't leave you weak and vulnerable. A way that facilitated change and showed mercy without opening you up to more disappointment. Some way to be firm, but not rigid. Luckily, there is a way. The road out of here can be a long, long road, often not well marked. The choices are confusing, but there is a way. If you're the offender, you've done something wrong. You hurt someone you love, someone who deserves better from you. This person might be a parent, a sibling, a child, a friend, a partner, or a spouse. Whoever it is, where you were once trusted, you're now under suspicion. You were close, but now you're distant. Loved, but now there's disgust. You want to do better, but you don't know how. You've apologized maybe 100 times, but can't get past it. You know your action, even though it was wrong, was not the whole story. There were precipitating factors. It's complicated. You'd like to explain, but you can't talk about it without sounding like you're making excuses. You wish there was another way between groveling and pride. You'd like to learn from your mistakes without losing your dignity and voice. There is a way for you too, a way to repair what was damaged. If you don't know what you are, so much has happened that you don't even know who's at fault. You've been caught in a cycle of injury and reprisal so long you don't remember how it started. It was once a loving relationship with a parent, with a sibling, with a child, a friend, a partner, or a spouse. Now you don't know what it is anymore. It's a bait you must take, a trap you can't escape. You've gone to years of therapy, dozens of marriage counselors, and read a shelf full of self-help books, but you can't change. You'd like to, but it takes two, and you both can't seem to get it together at the same time. You wish there was another way, a way that was simple, clear, and direct. I wish there was another way too, but there's not. There is no simple way. There's not a way without some pitfalls, temptations, blind alleys, and complications. The road to reconciliation is not easy, but it's easier than the way you've been going. How to get going? We tend to divide people up into perpetrators and victims and assume that they have very different characters. But in reality, we are all both victims and perpetrators. It's not like the hurt person and the guilty one take different paths to reconciliation that start with them far apart and meeting in the middle. Both sets of people are alike and travel the same path before they can come together. In all cases, whether it seems like you were harmed or the one doing the harm, the road to reconciliation begins with coming to terms with being a victim. You might be surprised by this. When someone has done us harm, we usually want to start by convincing them that they were wrong and getting them to admit that they were at fault. We're looking for a confession before repentance begins. We want them to be sorry, to take responsibility, if not grovel, pleading for forgiveness. But you don't need to start there. You may not make meaningful progress if you start there. You may not start at all if you try to start there. It goes better to start where they are. Often, that's not at the conviction of sin, but at the conviction of injury. Being a victim puts you in a perilous position. It's hard to get justice. You'll often act out and harm someone, either someone you believe caused the pain or anyone else close at hand. Loved ones get the worst of it. Then when your partner feels harmed, he may harm you right back. Around and around it goes. You could avoid all that by dealing directly with your feelings before you seek justice, so you don't need to act out and injure anyone else. Everyone is a victim somehow. There are enough bad parents, bad neighborhoods, bad teachers in schools, nuns with rulers, thugs with guns, ruthless terrorists, selfish boyfriends, narcissistic girlfriends, vicious trolls, sexual predators, reckless drivers, treasonous spouses, ungrateful children, exploitive bosses, racist cops, corrupt, lying, demagogic politicians, and cantankerous elderly to go around. These people and their actions don't bring out the best in you. When you don't know what to do with the harm they cause, you become one who does harm. Before anyone becomes an offender, they were a victim first. They were a nail that became a hammer. This is even true for those who seem to always get the breaks. People born with a silver spoon in their mouths can still complain that they never had to struggle, so they never learned how to cope with a little trouble they do have. Their complaints don't have to be justified or reasonable for them to act on them. They just have to have them. If in their eyes they're harmed, that's enough to make them be the cause of harm themselves. If you're a victim, you may resent that I ask you to open your ranks and let perpetrators of all kinds march with you. Why should you feel sorry for cheating spouses, self-absorbed parents, bullying siblings, alcoholic girlfriends, drug-dealing, woman-beating boyfriends, as well as child abusers, rapists, murderers, and criminals of all kinds? You may see this as yet another indignity visited upon you, who deserves to be called victim, that I permit sympathy for their kind. What am I? A soft, bleeding-hearted fool? As we go on, I think you'll see that I'm not. In fact, you'll find me upfront, plain-speaking, straight-talking, and unreserved. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start now by pointing out that this whole mess begins when a victim starts believing some people are more deserving of sympathy, care, and respect than others. That's when a victim crosses the line and becomes a perpetrator herself. So cut it out. You don't have to feel sorry for the selfish prick who's blubbering that he had it so hard, but you do have to acknowledge, if that's where he's at, that's where he has to start. The exception to the rule. I expect most readers will get the most out of the book if they begin here in part 1, assessing the harm done, and read it in order. The exception might be if you're feeling guilty for something you've done and believe you need to move fast to mend your ways because your partner is ready to give up on you. If you believe that if you dwell too much on how you are wronged, it'll sound like you're making excuses. If that's the case, then go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and pick up my book, How to Make an Apology You'll Never Have to Make Again, and work through that book on the steps of reparation. I would never want to stop anyone who's ready to accept responsibility. However, I would urge you to turn back later and come to terms with you being a victim. It is only by confronting your weaknesses and vulnerabilities that you'll understand why you did the things you did and acquire the tools to stop them. You each have your own work to do. Just because both the offender and the offended travel the same road doesn't mean they can do it together. No victim wants to hear about how his persecutor was persecuted. You're just going to have to come to terms with yourself before you can work jointly. You each have an individual part to play before you can play together. There are a few waypoints on the road to reconciliation that are important to watch for. The first is where you're no longer limited to understanding how you only were harmed. You've climbed a long way out of feeling like a victim and can see the big picture. You understand your part in it and how your pursuit of justice made you lose your way. This is the mountaintop moment. From there you descend the chasm of culpability, ready to make amends. This makes you able to enter a beautiful valley I call personal peace. It is only then that you are ready to work together towards reconciliation. Not everyone makes it all the way to reconciliation. Your counterpart will not be ready for reconciliation exactly when you are. She may never be ready at all. In fact, if you have been hurt enough, you might not even want to go to a place called reconciliation. Seeing the person who hurt you and interacting with him may already be a few steps too far. Well, relax. You don't have to reconcile if you don't want to. But I think you'll agree that you can use some personal peace. Total, genuine reconciliation with the other person requires a collaborative effort that some people cannot do, cannot, or will not. Both parties have to take responsibility for their share of the solution. If you have a counterpart who won't do his share, you will not make it all the way to reconciliation. Luckily, you can make it far down the road without their help. You can make it all the way to personal peace, which is a kind of reconciliation with yourself. Personal peace is a pretty nice place. So let's begin. Not by reconciling, for reconciliation with the other is still a long way off, and maybe you'll never get there. Your initial objection is coming to peace with what happened. You get there by first going in what seems to be the other direction. You've got to get angry first, or at least know your feelings about what happened.